Welcome to East Meets West, episode 419. I'm Tom Merritt.
And I'm Roger Chang.
And it is our second episode of the year, Roger.
I think we're doing much better this time around.
Yeah, we doubled our episode count from 2023.
I mean, hey, small steps.
We both do a show every day together. So I think that has, reduced the need for us to just hang out because we see each other all the time.
You mean dulled their appetite to do it?
That's not what I mean. It's more like, when we weren't working together, it was like, oh, I haven't talked to Roger in a while. We should do an East Meets West. That'll be fun, right? And now it's like, well, I talk to you every day, so I'm never thinking I haven't talked to Roger in a while.
Definitely. No, it's good. It's this show has always been about both therapeutic and a social visit.
Yeah. Can I tell you my weird Uber Eats experience today?
Is it like super like weird, crazy, or just like a very amusing?
I think it's more on it ends up being more on the amusing side.
Okay. I like to hear it.
So it starts with us signing up for that LADWP program that you may have heard about. I know you're not on LADWP, but they have a program where if you have a smart thermostat, you allow them to set your thermostat during peak hours, especially during the summer when there's like.
I remember
powers.
that news cycle. Yeah.
Yeah. And then if you let them do it, they give you a gift card at the end of the year. So I got my $120 MasterCard gift card from LADWP. So we're like, ooh, let's splurge. Let's buy some Uber Eats and have it delivered. So we log on to Uber Eats, we order our pasta, everything looks normal. And then suddenly the driver texts me, I'm having a hard time seeing your address. Can you send it to me?
What? Wait, isn't it?
Through the Uber Eats app. So it's not like they're trying to get my phone number or anything. This is all happening in the app. And I'm like, but my address is right there. So I'm like, I actually went over to ChatGPT and I was like, what kind of scams could someone pull by asking for my address when they're already going to get it? And it was like, probably a glitch. It didn't really have any good scam ideas. So I'm like, okay, I think it's safe. So I just typed in the exact same information that's in the interface from Uber Eats, including the just leave food on the porch, don't ring the doorbell, which we've had in there since lockdowns in 2020. And we never took it away because, we have a dog and it's just easier that way. And this specifically, I was like, well, this person's acting weird. So I just want them to leave my food and go away. So they say, great, on my way. And in Uber Eats, have you ever used Uber Eats?
I've only used the Uber drive, but never the eat portion.
Yeah. So in Uber Eats, you basically have a little tracker that tells you what's going on with the driver. So you see them, you can even see them pull up in front of the restaurant, when it says they're picking up your order now. And then if you're the first one that they're bringing your food to, you'll see them on their way. If not, they'll just have a generalized thing until they're on their way to you, because sometimes they do multiple orders. But I guess we were the only order for this person, because I see the car is by the pasta place that we ordered from. And then when I give her the address, she's like, okay, on my way. Then I see the car driving towards our house on the map. Now, the other thing about Uber Eats is when you're seeing the driver going to pick up your order, it gives a little route map to the restaurant.
Driver.
It's for the driver, but you get to see it too. So you can kind of see like, oh, they're close to the restaurant now. They're parking now. Great. And then when they pick up your order, they have a route to your house, right? And then you can see how close they're getting to your house. Well, the route stayed on the restaurant. And she was driving towards me on the map, but the route was just like, no, she's supposed to go back to the restaurant, as if she didn't get the food. So I was like, does she really have the food? Anyway, I'm tracking this. I watch her pull up. She gets to the end of my street and just stops for a while. And I'm like, okay, is she trying to make me come out and find her? Because I don't want to do that. Then finally, she comes on down the street, pulls in front of my house. walks up, leaves the food, walks away. And I'm like, okay, I go check it. It's what we ordered. It's our order. It's hot. It doesn't look like it's been tampered with because it's stapled shut at the top. I'm like, okay. I'm like, that was weird, but anyway, whatever. So I get the food in, we start eating, and I notice she's still being tracked.
Outside.
As if she's supposed, and it still says, your driver is on the way to pick up your order. And I'm like, almost done with my food, and it still says that. So I go to Uber Eats chat, and I say, hey, our food arrived, but the app still says it's waiting to be picked up. And it's very clearly a chatbot that keeps saying, oh, I'm sorry, you can ask for a refund here. And I'm like, no, we have the food. I just want it to be marked as ordered. Would you like to, cancel your order? And I could have canceled the order there and would have screwed the restaurant and the driver. I did not do that. And I kept going around in circles because it's like, choose from one of these options, and none of the options apply. They don't have an option for my food got delivered, but you seem to think it hasn't. So I finally figure out how to force it to let me chat with a person. And I get with the person. I was like, hey, my food arrived, but the app says it hasn't. Can you, just mark it as delivered? And they are like, I'm so sorry you're having trouble today. I completely understand. And it's like total canned responses, even though it's supposedly from a human. And so I'm like, no. I just want to make sure the driver gets paid. And they're like, rest assured your driver will get their fee, and we will get your food to you. And I'm like, no, I have my food. I'm just trying to make sure the driver they're like, we'll take care of it. Don't worry. And so I close it, and it does a survey, and they're like, how satisfied were you? And I'm like, I'm not satisfied because you gave me a bunch of canned answers. I got my food. I'm just trying to make sure the driver doesn't get in trouble because they did deliver it. By that time, I get a notice that says the driver has picked up your food and it's on its way. And I'm like, okay, so maybe that had some effect. I look, she is now driving back to my house. I now have the route on the map that is to my house. So she must have got to the restaurant and got them to mark it as handed over, because it says she's on her way. So at that point, we had finished our dinner by that point. I took the empty bag and I put it on the porch because I know they're supposed to take a confirmation photo when they drop off food. And I'm like, well, maybe if she can use the empty bag. So I put a little note like, use this for your photo. And I left it out there. And I watch as she drives all the way up, all the way down my street, parks in front of my street, and then it goes away. And it goes away when they've delivered it. So I assume she got it resolved and got paid and everything is fine. And so I went out on the porch and I took the bag and back and I threw it away.
I don't know. It seems how things seem to be going, very convoluted, things that should be rather straightforward.
Yeah. No, I agree. I'm sure it is incredibly rare for someone to complain that their food got delivered. Most people would have just closed the app and ignored it, right?
Yeah, most people, it's like, yeah, I got my food, whatever. Close the app.
I don't care.
Don't worry about it.
I was just curious what was going to happen. And then I started to be like, well, I got my food. She did a good job. She deserves to get the fee and the tip.
She deserves to get paid.
Yeah. And it was on time. And the app is like, we're sorry your food is late. We apologize, and I'm like, well, I hope she doesn't get dinged for being late because it wasn't late. It was perfectly on time. It's just the app was all messed up. Yeah. And it was really frustrating in that chatbot where it's like, I kept trying to say, hey, my food got delivered. And the chatbot just could not understand that. Then when I got to the human clearly had a script that didn't account for this and was trying their best to be like, it'll be fine. But I'm like, what I would have liked is for you to go, oh, I see your delivery. We'll tell the driver, we'll mark it as delivered. Everything's cool. But they made her drive all the way back, which is such a waste.
It's just, there's so many things I think that seem, I don't want to say in a way, it's normal. It's like all this stuff should work, but when it doesn't work, I think oftentimes there aren't all the things in place to help you deal with it in a timely manner.
Well, because they only have things in place for the common occurrences.
Yes.
And there's always going to be every day when you have thousands and thousands of events happening like you do with delivery, there's going to be one new thing that the system never accounted for.
And, you know, it's kind of weird because that's one of the things that for many people, including myself, I still like about being and picking up things, either buying or picking up a food order in person, because you always have the option of, can I speak to the manager? Because there is an issue, you know, there is a person you can go to, preferably on site, and there isn't this kind of back and forth. You can figure out, like, oh, this order's wrong. I'll take it, but, you know, instead of paying the $40, it's $30 because that's what this order, you know, amounts to. It's like, yeah, that's fine. You know, they'll do it and you're out the door. Instead of like sometimes where you have to go through a customer support and then they have to get sign off on making any adjustments.
It's like when you're not in person, companies use it as an excuse to not give you that option, because they very easily could give you the option to speak to a manager, you know. In fact, on phone calls, you can do that all the time. Like I do, but it's harder because you're not looking them in the eye. So you have to push harder. And then on a chatbot, if the chatbot isn't set up for that, then you're not going to get there.
It's weird because originally I bought a used enterprise drive off this site from off a seller on eBay, and the seller has a pretty good reputation, you know, for the past 6 years. What they do is they sell used enterprise drives, which typically have 50% of their life remaining, but they sell them at super cheap rates.
Yeah.
So you get a really good drive with maybe like 5 years left of life in it.
And possibly, if someone hasn't done their job, secrets.
Well, this is the thing. They clearly say they do a secure wipe and they do like the DoD.
That's why I said if someone hasn't done their job, because I'm sure most of the time.
So someone did do their job.
Oh, really?
I bought a 2 terabyte enterprise SSD, and this is the thing on an enterprise SSD where like a consumer one would give you, say, like a 2 terabyte drive would give you 1,200 terabytes of life written to it.
Yeah.
Enterprise is typically double or triple that. So
so if you're getting 50%, yeah.
And it's like $100. It's like $90. Like, why not? So I buy it and I get it. And I plug it in and I do the standard diagnostic just to make sure.
Yeah.
And lo and behold, Crystal Diskmark tells me, bad drive, it's going to die.
What?
It's like, yeah, like it's like it has a little big red square that lights up saying like the.
I
the
thought you were going to say you
line.
had a bunch of like secret files on it.
No. It's just like the drive is like physically.
It's what was not 50% used. It was 100% used.
It was 100% used. You need to send it back. So I sent it back. You know, I did the whole eBay thing, and the whole process was very seamless. Like the guy sent me a message with eBay. It's like, what the issue is. I sent him the pictures, the screenshots of the diagnostics. Like, no problem, send it back. You know, unfortunately, we don't have any more of those drives left. So will you take a refund? It's like, yeah. So I send it back. And the eBay thing tells you they tend to overestimate how long it takes, so that they play it very conservatively.
They pad it.
So it'll take you like 7 days, but I got my refund in 3, which is great.
Yeah, that's good.
So I buy another drive from them, but this one is new, and I got it working. It's great, but it's one of those things where that little email conversation. I've done this with other stores too. We're just talking to someone and then working out that issue. 99% of the time solves it, and you don't have sort of what you have where everyone's scratching their head like what's happening.
Once I figured out how to get the chatbot to kick me over to a human, I was like, oh, okay, so you know, so I can talk to a human. I'm sure I'll be able to figure this out. But even they were like, they just weren't engaging. They clearly didn't have the experience to be like, oh, this is an unanticipated problem. Let me use my problem-solving skills. They were just like, I'm sure it'll be fine. I'm like, that doesn't help.
I mean, unfortunately, that's one of the problems at scale is you don't train or you can't train everyone for all those potential things. When it's something smaller like a mom and pop service, one of the employees can generally like, yeah, I think it's gonna be okay. I called the boss and he said they're totally fine with it.
Yeah, exactly. No, that is definitely what was going on. This person was probably in a call center, right? They probably aren't even an Uber Eats employee. And we're like, well, I could, and I think they even said like, I have alerted, the developers, et cetera, or I've alerted the system administrators or something. I can't remember how they phrased it, but they were like, I've told them about this issue and they will be on it. And I'm like, oh, so you aren't even involved. Like you're just somewhere remote. You don't work with anyone at Uber Eats. You can't run down the hall to Bob and say like, hey, can you mark this as delivered? Like it's not that kind of situation.
There is something to be said that where you have that, you don't even need to be in the same office, but like if something happens,
jump on Slack, right? Yeah, totally.
Just like, hey, this is blown up. What do you think? This is all good. You get the thumbs up.
I do think that kind of experience can become more frequent with the rise of better large language models. Because large language models can be better. The Uber Eats chatbot was not a large language model. It was on rails and it was like, could not understand what I was saying. Because I was like, my order got delivered. And it would respond, we're sorry, your order did not get delivered. I'm like, no, I said the opposite. Whereas I know an LLM, as weird as they can be sometimes, would have understood what I was saying. And then if you have large language models that can handle a lot more situations, then the people who are at the customer care center you can spend more time and money training them and plugging them in to be able to do actual like unanticipated situation solving.
And making sure there is a system in place that gives someone in the authority to make a call where you don't have to like just keep sending it up until like
or
regional manager says it's okay to do.
Or just make it so that the devs and the customer support people meet once a quarter and get to know each other so that they know like, oh, I know I can ask Pat about this. Let me, hit them up on Slack.
I will say having good customer support in many, in at least in my personal case, can be life-changing because I think I've told this story before, but during the pandemic, we were trying to transfer over the title of my recently passed away father-in-law's truck to my wife. And because she wrote down the wrong insurance, she was having trouble. She booked like 3 appointments to the physical DMV and they couldn't solve it. And I just said, you know what? Just call them. It's like, what? She said, why call them? Just call them. Trust me. And she caught someone on the phone. She explained it to them. She told my wife what to do. Say, here's the case number. This is what you do. You sign this affidavit. You take all these things and you go down to the office.
Yeah.
And that solved it. It was great because we were worried about how to handle this because the people at the DMV were saying, well, no, you have to get the people that you wrongly put down as the insurance to say that they didn't insure your car. This is so weird. Like, why would anyone do that? Like, we tried it and like we got somewhere and like it never went anywhere. You know what I mean? Like they have that the person that didn't do anything has no vested interest in helping you.
Yeah.
And it was just all a mistake. And, the person on the phone, bless her heart, is totally went to bat and just sorted it all out. And that is kind of the customer experience I think most people want. But oftentimes it's a varying quality. Like sometimes it's really bad, sometimes really good, but oftentimes it's the sliding scale in between.
I found that when I went, I had a tax issue where I started, let's see, what was it? I had moved to Los Angeles on January 2nd of a year. And I had filed for my taxes with my Los Angeles address, but all of my taxes had been accumulated when I was in San Francisco. But the city of Los Angeles noticed that on my tax filing, I had filed as an independent contractor because I was doing freelance work, and said, well, you owe LA taxes. You're an independent contractor. You have an LA address, but you didn't apply for a business license, so you owe LA taxes, and you owe this late fee, et cetera. And I didn't even get on the phone. I just went to the tax office and went up to a person and said, so here's the situation. I moved on January 2nd. So yeah, my filing address was LA because that's where I lived when I filed, but I lived in San Francisco for that entire year. I will get a business address, license now. But what do I do? And it was not a problem. That person looked at it and she's like, oh yeah, that's, no, do you have like a rental agreement or something? And I brought it with me and I was like, here you go. She's like, great. Yeah. I'll do this and this. And then you won't have to worry about that. She's like, do you want to just register now since you're here? And I was like, yeah, sure. And she's like, what do you do? And I was like, explained, I'm a podcaster, I do freelance stuff. She's like, okay, so you're number 143. She's like, I didn't have to figure out how to fill out the form. She just did it for me. It was super helpful.
But it takes a load off your mind.
Yeah, totally.
Super complicated thing has been just sort of worked away.
Yeah.
by the other person.
And she was really nice about it. It wasn't like, suspicious. Oh, you're trying to get away with something. She's like, oh, okay. Do you have something you can show that proves that? Great. Here, let me help you with the next step, versus some other person might've been like, well, okay. It's up to if you're not going to ask to file your license, then I'm, would have dragged their feet, but this person was really helpful.
Yeah. And, ultimately that is a people skill. That's a thing that some people.
There's more of those kind of helpful people out there than I think just generally assumed.
There are, but I've also noticed that it's not the people, but it's just the system that they work in really just doesn't allow or in some cases penalizes.
Yeah, systems can make it more or less likely for helpful people to arise or people to feel like being helpful. Yeah.
One of the most glaring things I noticed about big box tools or hardware stores versus like a local one is actually the local ones seem to be devoid of this too nowadays, but just having someone on staff that actually knows how to do something that they don't then need to pass off to someone else.
The last couple of times I've been in a Best Buy, I have had the best experience ever. And I think it's because they're less crowded. I feel like instead of having to hunt someone down and then have them look at me like, I'm really too busy to help you, but fine. I got like decent help. The very last time I was buying this XLR to USB adapter, and the guy, I was like, it shows that it's on the website. And he's like, you know what? I bet it's in this box back in the warehouse. Give me your number, and I'll just, when we unload that box, I'll give you a call. And I was like, okay, great. Yeah, that's fine. I gave him the number. I was in my car and he called and he's like, I just went back and looked at that box just to see, and it was on the top. So I've got it. And I was floored. I was like, damn, that's good customer service. But it was because he had time. He had time to be like, you know what? I can call this guy if it comes out of the box. And he had time to, I've got a couple minutes. Let me just check in the warehouse and see if it's there. Whereas if it was busy, he probably wouldn't have even he probably would have said, you'll just have to check back tomorrow, because he wouldn't have wanted to commit himself to calling me.
It's weird. Like one of the worst customer service experiences I've ever had was, believe it or not, car shopping. I went to a Subaru dealership. And literally, I stood there for like 15 minutes and no one came up to me. There were 3. I assume they were salesmen, but because they were wearing button-down shirts and ties. But they were playing football in the lot, like next to me, and like I'm like looking at the cars. And normally, you would think at a car dealership, people would be like running.
Yeah, that's the norm, right? Yeah.
Yeah, and I was just like, what a bizarre. And
if anything, usually you're like fighting them off. Like, no, I just want to look.
Oh, exactly. Yeah, and
yeah.
after spending half an hour there, it's like, I'm out. Like, it's obviously they're not interested in helping anyone. But yeah, like,
I suspect some situation where their commissions weren't going to increase enough that day for whatever, like maybe it was the end of the month, and they were like, well, we're not going to hit our goal anyway, or I don't know.
Certain dealerships that always have sales. So people used to accuse Honda and Toyota dealerships of this, like the cars sell themselves. So the people there were really there just to take your order down
Yeah.
and do all the financing. But they didn't have to work that hard. But at the GMC dealership, which, the GMC Buick Pontiac dealership had a rougher go. So the guy that sold my dad his truck, like, he went the extra mile. Like, he spent a lot of time. He even went to my dad's restaurant when he had the car serviced, and he brought it back.
Oh, wow.
He sat in the bar, and my dad gave him a drink and all that. But, like, there's a level of service, and there's a level of non-service, and
Yeah.
it's always jarring because, like,
No.
from
When
one place
Eileen
to
took her
another.
car in for servicing a couple weeks ago, she got both ends of the scale. Like, the guy that checked her in was fine. Like, it took a while for her to get checked in, but it's like, oh, I guess they just had a lot of cars, whatever. Then the mechanic was awesome. He was like sending her videos of like, here's the axle, here's the part that's damaged, like, it was really thorough. And she showed it to me. I was like, oh yeah, no, I can see that needs to be replaced. Like that's cool. That's cool. That's good. That's the kind of thing you want from a mechanic, and you usually don't get from a dealer, right? Unless you ask. So I was like, that's awesome. So they fixed it. And then the guy called back and said, she said, yeah, go authorize the fix. And the guy said, okay, it might not be done today. If it is, it won't be done until 5. And we close at 6. So, I'll let you know, but expect to pick it up tomorrow. Well, then the next day, he never called. He never called the next day. So she finally calls late on Saturday, because it was a Friday when she took it in. She calls late on Saturday, and she got routed to someone else's message box. And so she's
this
like,
is at the same place.
yeah, it's at the same dealership where the mechanic was great, but the service agent was rotten. And then on Sunday she called, and they were like, and she like skipped past the mailbox and got to a person, and they're like, oh yeah, he's not in on the weekends. But let me check on your car. And they're like, yeah, it won't be done till tomorrow. And it's like, yeah, that would have been nice. It would have been nice if somebody would have told me, you have my car. Yeah.
I will say the local Toyota dealership, even though they're very, very pricey for what they offer, is really good about maintaining contact
That's
with the
good.
customer.
Yeah.
But I also found a local mechanic who works only on Hondas and Toyotas, and he's less than 50% of the cost, and he's just as you want to pick it up today, you have to leave the car here. Do you want to pick up today, tomorrow? I was like, I'll pick it up tomorrow. And it's just, okay, you just come around like 9, and it'll be, I'll call you, and I'll let you know, and he does. And
Yeah, that's good.
I'll walk over. It takes me 30 minutes. I pick up my car.
I take my Honda to a guy in Van Nuys the same way. You know who he is.
I mean, there's something to be said. I mean, the dealership quoted me $500 to change on a truck. There's, on the back axle, there's that big round thing in the center that's differential that takes the input shaft and then turns the rear
Yeah,
wheels.
right.
You have to change that oil every 30,000 miles inside, and the dealership wanted $500. And I asked my mechanics, like, yeah, $95.
Yeah.
That's like, man, that dealership must be in trouble if they're really that, or they get so many incoming, which they did. They're always super busy.
Yeah.
That if they could
just
totally
charge whatever.
Yeah.
And people won't question it. Yeah. I think we should call this episode, May I Talk to a Human?
Yeah, or just someone who can give me a definite answer, yay or nay.
Human, or someone human-like.
Yeah, no. And the last one I will say is the people who painted my house. I got in like 4 quotes, and the one I went with were the only guys that would actually. The guy I was talking to was the guy who was going to paint my house, versus everyone else was the boss, and then they would send a crew out, and then you would have to talk to the crew and figure everything out. It's just easier. I know the guy. I have his number. He has my number. Talk. When he's here, I talk. Over the phone, I talk. Just there's something about knowing that the guy that you hired is also the guy working.
Oh yeah. We hired a company when we did major like landscape redesign to the front yard, but everything else I just use Raimundo. the guy who does the weekly, gardening for us. Like he's great. And he always quotes me a fair price, and I know exactly who to talk to. And if I buy him a case of Squirt, he loves Squirt soda,
Hey,
like
that's great.
Keeps him happy. And yeah. So,
I mean, my landscaper hasn't raised my.
I pay him too. Don't get me wrong. I'm not paying him in Squirt. I just like do that as sort of a bonus. Like, I know you like this. Here, this will help make it a little more. Easier.
My landscaper hasn't raised my rates since I moved here, which is back in 2016. So I don't mind if he misses like 2 or 3 weeks, because it's not a lot of money for what he does. So.
Yep, indeed. Well, good episode. We should do this again sometime.
Yes, we should aim for one in the new year after all the craziness.
Well, I think the last one we did was in February, and I think if I'm right, the one before that was in February. So we would be due for our February episode.
Yeah, sounds like an annual podcast.
Oh, actually, no, I'm wrong. Our last one was in April, and the one before that was in February. So
February and April we did them this year.
April and December we did them this year. February we did it in 2023.
Got it.
In 2022 we had like multiple episodes.
Wow.
So, yeah.
What were we on?
I don't know. We were on one back then. Well, thanks everybody. Jason. I assume there's more than Jason, but thank you. Talk to you later.